mean, I guess they could prepare both sides and then just wait. No? Okay, that's fine.
So we just
Look.
call heads or tails?
Right now are just spectators.
Oh my god. I can't use the chat now. Yeah, I need you guys to make a call.
I'll go for heads, I guess.
Okay. The call is tails, so what side does the other team want?
Can we go neg?
Neg it is.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, go prep. Thank you.
So I'm going to share my timer so you guys can see how it's going to look like on your end. Here is the timer. How does it look like?
Looks like a timer. Beautiful.
Is it huge?
No, every spectator can adjust their screen display on Zoom. Just move the divider to the left so the shared screen, your timer display, right now on my screen only occupies about a quarter of the space. So the rest of the screen is displaying all the participant windows.
Okay. Let me go back to my PowerPoint.
The bigger problem, however, is that on the YouTube live stream, the timer is still like the normal big size.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think we can do anything about it at this point.
All right.
Oh yeah, competitors, for the prep you're doing right now, do you all want your breakout rooms?
Whatever the other team wants, cause yeah.
Okay. Eric, is your partner here?
I'm gonna ask her.
Yeah, because if she is, tell her to put F at the start of her name, because I'm just gonna search up F for the breakout room. It's impossible for me to look through all the 73 participants to find your partner for the breakout room.
Okay, yeah, I just told her to.
I see Amy's here.
Yeah, she should be in.
Yeah, she's here. I can see her.
Yeah. Okay. All the breakout rooms are open. Debaters, did you receive an invitation to join?
Yep.
Yeah.
Should we just decline the invitations?
Yeah, as long as you can access it when you're doing prep, then that's fine.
Yeah, so later on, I'm going to do the timer. So when you're ready to speak up, so let me know. Give me like a 3, 2, 1 countdown. So I can talk. Thank you.
Okay, also from the YouTube comments, it seems like the YouTube isn't really working, so I guess we'll just go purely with Zoom.
I think we should just keep the YouTube one. Like,
yeah.
maybe.
Okay then. are all the judges here?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we can get started. Let's see. So hi, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank all the judges that were tirelessly volunteering their time and effort so that our kids these days could have the debates that they had. We're still working on getting ballots out to everyone, but these judges have been leaving a lot of great feedback for our competitors. So first, thanks to all these judges. Second of all, I would like to thank Ivy Max Foundation for sponsoring this tournament and providing all the Zoom rooms that we've been using for the debates. If it weren't for them, it would be literally impossible to have these virtual debates. Ivy Max Foundation was established in 2013 and is a 501(c) nonprofit organization recognized by the United States. To better respond to the goals of sustainable development of the United Nations, Ivy Max Foundation leads students to help disadvantaged groups in major communities in the United States and around the world to cultivate students to serve the community. During the COVID-19 crisis, Ivy Max Foundation organized students and parents to actively donate materials such as masks and monies to police, hospitals, nursing homes, and essential workers. Ivy Max Foundation is also the major sponsor of the National Youth Debate Tournament. Our goal is to educate students about research, debate, and in-depth logical reasoning abilities, and to raise public awareness about heated topics. Today's final debate will be held on the following resolution. The United States federal government and all state governments should remove all major restrictions on commercial activity and travel, except for social distancing, disinfection, and critical safety measures. So at this time, would our three judges please introduce themselves?
Who wants to go first? I guess I can. All right, my name is Michael Greenberry. I have worked for Ivy Max for a few years now. I've worked with the Speech and Debate Club here. Before that, I was a debater at UC Berkeley. I've taught at the Cal National Debate Institute, and I've been somewhat active with the Bay Area Urban Debate League ever since I was in college. Before that, I was a debater for my alma mater, Clovis North High School. And so I've all in total, I've got about 10 years of debate experience. And I want to give a thank you to all the employees at Ivy Max, because not only did Ivy Max provide Zoom rooms, but a lot of labor as well. So I think that everyone's contributions made this event a great success, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I'm excited for a great debate.
All right, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Fang, and I'll be another judge for this for the grand finale of this debate. And I'm so honored and humbled to be able to be a part of this experience. And thank you so much to Ivy Max and Eric and all the wonderful planning committee for hosting such an amazing event, especially during this time of quarantine, so relatable and relevant to our society today. And I'm just so excited to hear what our students have to say about our economy and what the best way it is for our government to balance both good economy and also keeping our citizens safe. So I'm really looking forward to our debaters and hearing what insight they have to offer. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, and my name is Shen Wei, and I'm the third judge for the final round of this debate tournament. And again, I echo the sentiments from the other two judges. Really appreciate all the efforts coming from the student debaters, as well as the volunteering judges over the last 2 days, and of course the staff behind the whole tournament. I think without everybody's effort, this tournament would not have been possible. So again, I had some debating experience from way back in my high school years. But I think more recently, when my two kids went through their high school years and part of their college years, I'm a little bit more exposed to debate, especially policy debate. But still, this whole 2 days tournament have also given me new insights into many of the nuances of the debating practices, as well as brought my attention to some of the issues that perhaps have eluded me even over the years. So I really look forward to hear both sides of the arguments in this final round, and hopefully everybody can learn something and have something valuable taken away from this whole experience, as I certainly have. So again, good luck to both sides of the debating team, and let's have a blast for the final round.
All right, a few final announcements. So for all the people who are here as spectators, please make sure to mute yourself and to keep your camera off to reduce the load on our bandwidth. Also, thanks to Hannah for being our timer for this round, as well as Kiki for helping moderate. And now, if both teams are ready, let's get this debate started.
Can everybody see my timer?
Yes.
Yes.
Please let me know when you are ready. So first up, we will have the first speaker from the pro side. You'll have 6 minutes. Amy? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Amy, your mic is on, but we can't hear anything you're saying.
Do you want to rejoin the meeting real quick? Okay. So Eric, Sally, and Ellen, do you want to speak up to test your mic?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Testing.
Yeah, hi Eric.
Okay.
Test.
Mhm,
Testing.
good. Oh, good. Okay. So let's just wait for Amy to join us. So Eric, you may need to reassign Amy to the breakout room later.
Okay, back to mute. It will come on mute.
Since Amy left and rejoined, I have to remake. Actually, I think I can just directly assign Amy without remaking all the rooms.
Oh, I see Amy's here. Amy, can you speak up? I still couldn't hear you.
Amy, can you hear us?
Okay. So do you want to try to join us on your phone, maybe? Don't worry. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Before Amy joins us, I want to introduce the debate system, how the debate system look like. So we're using the public forum. So the flow of this public forum is, first of all, the pro side first speaker will give us a introduction of 6 minutes. And then the com side first speaker will also give us a speech of 6 minutes. And then the two speakers from both sides, they'll have a crossfire of 3 minutes. After that, the second speaker from the pro team will give us the second speech from the pro team of 6 minutes. And then the second speaker from the com side will also give us a speech of 6 minutes. And after that, it will be another crossfire of 3 minutes. So after the second crossfire, it will be the pro summary of 4 minutes and then the com summary of 4 minutes. So after that, we will move on to the grand crossfire, which is going to be 3 minutes. So the last step is the final focus. So both the pro side and the con side will give us their final focus of 3 minutes. So that's how the public forum debates works. So I can see Amy here now. Can you try?
Join any breakout rooms from this device though, so.
Oh, hi, Amy. I can hear you now.
Let me re-invite you to the breakout room. Can you join now?
Okay, yeah, wait.
Okay, then I think we're finally all ready to go.
Good.
Alright.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, let's welcome the first speaker, Amy, from the pro side, to give her first speech of 6 minutes. Are you ready?
My time will begin now. I affirm the resolution that the United States federal government and all state governments should remove all major restrictions on commercial activity and travel except social distancing, sanitation, and critical safety measures. The consequences of continuing restrictions for months or potentially years are massively worse than the consequences of reopening commercial activity and travel whilst keeping social distancing, sanitation, and safety measures. Major restrictions include home quarantine, closed businesses, and halts to all traveling. Indefinite lockdown creates a domino effect, eventually resulting in greater devastation from coronavirus casualties and also an economic recession. Poverty is a tragedy that will be the result of continued restrictions of commercial activity and travel. The removal of major restrictions, such as reopening businesses or tourism destinations, have a multitude of benefits, short-term and long-term, not only benefiting the economy, but also the lifestyles of Americans. Lockdown has induced rapid increases of economic devastation. In less than 10 weeks, more than 40 million jobs have been lost, which means that the national unemployment rate as of May is nearly 15%. This trend will continue unless all the major restrictions on commercial activity and travel are removed. A Harvard Business Review reported that the United States loses a staggering $14 billion per day. There may very well be other less visible but potentially significant non-monetary costs, including depression and other mental health problems, domestic violence, the saturation of hospitals, impacting the treatment of other diseases, etc. The current restrictions will not prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Instead, they were meant to slow down the spread. My computer glitched. Slow down the spread, or suppress the spike of virus cases. In other words, flatten the curve, which would ensure that hospitals have enough capacity to care for infected patients. Once this is achieved, restrictions should be removed to allow gradual recovery of business activities. For such a highly contagious virus, up to 80% of infected individuals are asymptomatic. It is almost impossible to prevent its spread. Therefore, herd immunity is the best solution to ensure the mitigation of the coronavirus. However, the current restrictions aim for the least possible new cases, which stunts herd immunity. By removing restrictions, herd immunity is built up more gradually, maintaining the rates of new cases and casualties, but also preserving the economy. The review concluded that waiting for a vaccine would take as much as 12 to 24 months. We cannot remain in full lockdown that long. This evidence implies that reopening businesses is extremely time-sensitive and essential, not only because the economy would dive deeper into a recession, but because the health of Americans is compromised. A broad body of research links social isolation and loneliness to poor mental health, and recent data shows that significantly higher shares of people who are sheltering in place, 47%, reported negative mental health effects resulting from worry or stress related to coronavirus than among those not sheltering in place, 37%. Cheatham Bar, 421. Negative mental health effects due to social isolation may be particularly pronounced among older adults in households with adolescents, as these groups are already at risk for depression or suicidal ideation. Research shows that job loss is associated with increased depression, anxiety, distress, and low self-esteem may lead to higher rates of substance use disorder and suicide. Recent polling data shows that more than half of the people who lost income or employment reported negative mental health impacts from worry or stress over coronavirus, and lower income people report higher rates of major negative mental health impacts compared to higher income people. Without the reopening of businesses, in 1 to 2 years, America will plunge deep into recession, but with the added strain of the coronavirus. The Urban Institute reports that long-term unemployed workers were almost twice as likely to be poor as those unemployed less than 6 months, and almost 4 times as likely to be poor as those never unemployed. The article concludes that among long-term unemployed or underemployed workers in late 2011, 63% skipped dental visits, 56% put off needed healthcare, and 40% reported not filling a prescription, with each proportion roughly twice that for full-time workers. The increase in unemployment has caused poverty and health problems for families, children, and adults. Without proper hygiene due to loss of jobs, the coronavirus will take lives. Without proper health care, various other diseases and conditions will take more lives. Without a stable financial situation, mental illnesses will take even more lives. Another Urban Institute study assessed that higher rates of long-term unemployment increases suicide rates, although this may in part reflect general economic conditions. Micro-level data from Denmark found that job loss increases alcohol-related disease, mental illness, and suicide attempts. But these effects could be due to job loss itself and unrelated to unemployment duration. Theoretically, links between declining employment prospects and declining mental health seem clear. As economic stress increases, the incidence of anxiety disorders should increase. And as individuals fall into the social hierarchy, serotonin pathway disorders, including depression, should become more prevalent. The CDC concludes that feeling of isolation, depression, anxiety, and other emotional or financial stresses are known to raise the risk for suicide. People may be more likely to experience these feelings during a crisis like a pandemic. These added stressors, such as job loss and lack of human contact, all contribute to declining mental health, which may end up as suicide. Additionally, commercial activity is taxed by state, federal, and local levels, so there are no funds for unemployment money, which 40 million Americans are in dire need of. The 4 planned stimulus checks will cost the government $2.4 trillion, and combined with other spending, the government will have an extra $3.5 trillion on the national debt compared to 2019. Overall, the effect of continuing major restrictions will devastate more than reopening businesses with safety measures. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Thank you. So now let's move on to the first speaker from the NEG team.
Could I have a 1 minute prep? Thank you.
Okay, so give me a countdown when you're leaving.
Sorry, I was muted. 3, 2, 1, I'm gonna join now.
Eric, are you there? Can you please remind them that 1 minute's up?
Yeah, just pause the time and then I'll go get them.
Okay.
I'm back.
Welcome back. We were just talking about you.
Oh,
So, yeah. So you ready?
almost. I'm gonna set my timer.
Sure.
Please
give me a countdown too.
Yes, 6 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. So first of all, I'd like to mention that in debate, the negative only has to win one stock issue in order to win. So that means that the app has to defend every single point that they make. So first of all, in the resolution, it states that the United States federal government and all state governments should remove all major restrictions on commercial activity and travel. I'm going to cut it there. And notice the word travel. Don't you think that if people travel outside, then doesn't that mean that people are going to spread it to other countries, making the issue even bigger and even more global? Next, I'm going to talk about how deaths are being prevented now due to social distancing, and we should maintain that. So this is Irfan 69. Lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, closed schools, and canceled public events prevented millions of COVID-19 coronavirus cases and deaths, according to 2 peer-reviewed studies in Nature. In the United States alone, the measures stopped 4.8 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and up to 60 million infections in total. In 11 countries in Europe, 3.1 million deaths were avoided. So earlier in the AF speech, they stated that 80% were asymptomatic. That is exactly the problem. We don't know how many people actually have it, and there's so many people going around with asymptomatic. That means the COVID-19 can spread even faster, and we need to contain it by remaining in remaining in lockdown, because we don't know who's going to have the COVID-19. Next, I'm going to read that COVID-19 spread rate is on a low now due to social distancing, but reopening will reverse this trend. The reproduction number proves this. This is Eisenman 612. If the reproduction number is 2, then one person infects 2 others in just over a month. That one initial person will have launched a chain that has infected 127 people. The reproduction number in the US was above 2. Stay-at-home measures served to push the reproduction number to slightly below 1. States opened up, the reproduction number started to creep back above 1. So if we okay. Next, I'm going to move on to the issue of stocks. Stocks are actually on the rise now despite fears, and continuing quarantine won't hurt. This is New York Times 6/12. The S&P 500 closed more than 1% higher after having climbed more than 3%. It was the fastest recovery off a market low for the benchmark index since 1933. Now I'm going to move on to the issue of unemployment. Unemployment decreases when restrictions are in place longer. This is Connelly 20. Shutting down schools doesn't hurt the economy and could get things back to normal faster, according to a new study by Federal Reserve researchers. Non-pharmaceutical interventions lessen economic harm as well as reduce mortality. Cities that intervened earlier and more aggressively do not perform worse and grow faster after the pandemic. Putting restrictions in place an extra 50 days increased manufacturing employment by 6.5% afterwards. So basically what this piece of evidence is saying that is if we lock down longer and prevent so many deaths from happening, then we'll actually be able to see an increase, the unemployment amount decrease, which is really important. Next, multiple studies prove reopening early leads to worse economic outcomes, similar to the previous evidence I read. This is Con 20. Cities that lift measures early face a second wave, says Northwestern University. As soon as restrictions are lifted, infections climb rapidly again, which harms economic activity. An early end to containment policies plunges the economy into a second persistent recession. Abandoning containment brings about no long-lasting economic benefits. For the United States, lifting social distancing restrictions 12 weeks into an epidemic would cost 500,000 additional lives. So right now the number is at 127,000 deaths from the coronavirus. This is saying that if we actually open up, we're actually going to lose 500,000 more lives, which is horrible. And also, as the app stated again, I'm going to reiterate this. They said that 80% are asymptomatic. That means that 80%, we don't know, some people don't know that they have the COVID-19. So if they go around and spread it, then that means it's going to get even worse. And their plan is not going to solve this. So, and they say that suicidal rates and alcohol on a high right now, but according to the New York Times, 10% are, with the 10% increase of unemployed rate, only 128 suicides increase. Compare that to the number of 127,000 cases in addition to the 80% asymptomatic people. This is clearly nothing to be compared. It's minuscule compared to the numbers of deaths from the COVID-19. And in order to save more lives, we have to not open the economy and force people to stay at home so that they can contain the virus, and those who are asymptomatic can actually not spread the disease even further. So because of, yeah, I said that. Because of that, all of these reasons say that unemployment is actually going to go down if we stay in quarantine longer, basically. And also, they also mentioned that current restrictions don't prevent, just slows down. That's the whole purpose of the lockdown. It's to slow down the spread. If we reopen it back up, and according to them, we're going to make it spread even faster, which is not good. We don't want the COVID-19 to spread faster and lose 500,000 more lives. And of course, lockdown doesn't fully prevent, because of course some people are going to be a little rebellious, but it definitely helps. And reopening back the economy is not going to help that issue at all. It's just going to make it worse and expose more people to more people, and those asymptomatic people are going to spread it even further. Because of all of these reasons, I strongly urge a negative vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Okay, so next up, we're going to move on to the first crossfire, which is going to be 3 minutes. So F side, Amy, are you ready?
Yeah.
And con side, Sally, are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about who wants to ask the first question first?
Do you guys want to ask first because you're off?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, please give me a countdown when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay. Time starts now. Do we really have to prove any of your statistics or points wrong?
Yeah, because that's how debate works, because it's the burden of the affirmative to prove every point, to refute every point that the negative brings up. That's just basic laws of debate. Do you have any more questions, or?
Do asymptomatic people cough? Because if they don't, there's no spread with social distancing.
Are you saying asymptomatic people can't spread it? Because I'm pretty sure that asymptomatic people can spread the coronavirus and talking.
There's a very good chance of them spreading with social distancing and the masks on.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, if they talk, first of all, not everyone wears masks, and people are kind of rebellious. Second of all, people, even if you don't cough, you can spread it through talking to other people. And if we lift the restrictions right now, people are going to continue to talk to people, and it's going to make the situation way worse, which is really bad.
Okay. How would you solve the issue of continuing unemployment trends, poverty, and more people needing financial aid?
I said in my evidence that actually, if we wait a bit and actually let the coronavirus pass over, we can actually help the economy even more than the way that you guys are solving it by reopening right now, because there is evidence showing that it will actually decrease more if we keep in lockdown longer.
Okay. You can ask.
Do you have any more questions, or?
No, I'm good. It's your turn.
Oh, okay. So how are you going to defend the fact that the resolution says that the traveling is allowed? What is your argument on why that is gonna help?
So as of right now, airplanes, which is the main form of travel right now, they have at least 3 seats apart. So each aisle is separated and only has one person in each quarter section. And mostly travel with buses, those are usually not in such areas where quarantine, like in New York, the quarantine is really honed in right now, and buses are halted. So
okay, but what do you think happens after they get off the plane or the bus? Do you think they're not going to spread it to other people in other cities and make it even more of a global issue?
But they can continue the widespread testing and have the checks at security or when they get off the plane.
But isn't it true that COVID-19 symptoms don't show up until 2 weeks after you catch it?
But the testing, COVID-19 testing with the swabs or antibodies would show them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sally. So next we'll move on to the second speaker from the pro side. You'll give us a speech of 6 minutes. Are you ready, or do you want to use your prep time?
We'll take 2 minutes of prep and go into our breakout rooms.
Okay, please give me a countdown when you're leaving. Thank you.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, and now.
Eric, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you may.
As soon as it's 4 minutes, then I'll go get them.
Can we have 30 more seconds?
Okay.
I should be ready now. Okay.
Okay, welcome back. We all have 6 minutes, so please give me the 3, 2, 1 countdown when you're ready.
Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay. Time starts. Wait. Oh shit! I'm gonna get my own timer up. Sorry. Okay. Once again, is anyone not ready?
We're good.
Time starts now. Economy reopening drastically helps the economy. Economic reopening gains 11 million jobs back and cuts GDP losses by 20%. Wharton 512. Without states reopening, 6.1 million jobs would have been lost between May 15th and July 15th. But full reopening with social distancing still in place, which is the affirmative plan, could bring a net gain of 11.5 million jobs. GDP would change from minus 12.5% to minus 10.3%. Beyond staggering unemployment, the pandemic promises to have other long-range consequences for those who keep their jobs. Many employers that used to offer retirement plans have cut their matches. Staggered reopening avoids increasing infection rates. Staggered or sector-based reopening will improve GDP, cut unemployment losses, and improve investor confidence while avoiding increasing infection rates because it gives businesses flexibility. Harvard Business Review 519. The best option is a gradual release by sector, avoiding congestion of hospitals and especially intensive care units. Sectors to be released from lockdown could be chosen based on inability to conduct core business from home. Some organizations in these sectors have already been deemed essential and continued operations throughout the pandemic. One must also take into account the viability of certain sectors. For example, retailers are facing severe hardships and the business model makes it harder for state support to compensate. Within each sector, certain functions are either dispensable in the short term or easier to perform remotely. Companies reopening would therefore determine which jobs could remain virtual or begin later. Here's another card on it. Reopening while keeping moderate social distancing in place keeps the curve flat. Vote AF to end the extreme restrictions on mobility and businesses. Agarwal et al. No date. A stark conclusion that is immediately apparent from the figures is that it's uniform across all countries, there's a significant drop in the number of deaths with even a small drop in mobility. After this point, gains by further restricting mobility seem to be diminishing. Even small drops in mobility can significantly decrease the peak number of daily deaths in a country. Given that the peak number of daily deaths is the key metric in understanding how strained each nation's medical system will be, we see that the moderate mobility restriction measures can lead to a significant flattening of the curve. So once again, we're not removing completely all the mobility restraints. For example, international travel should not be allowed, so it's not made infection is not made a global problem. I mean, yeah, global problem like the neg says it is. And they said suicide is minimal, so they're kind of just ignoring the mental health of those hundreds of thousands of people suffering at home. A closed economy will bankrupt the Fed and destroy investments in stocks. Alizadeh 5-6. One potential consequence of the economic shutdown is a sharp increase in bankruptcies and corporate bond defaults. This can easily turn into a financial crisis if a large number of companies cannot access the market to refinance bond maturities. Buying corporate bonds can turn the Fed into an enabler of zombie companies who are kept alive by the constant infusion of bailout financing. This can end up costing enormous sums, way in the excess of trillions of dollars spent so far, and like we brought up in the 1AC, there are already $14 billion lost every single day of quarantine if the economy remains closed. The alternative would be to let many companies go bankrupt, but the credit carnage that would ensue could inflict serious long-term damage in economic productivity, competition, and financial markets. The AF basically doesn't have any solvency. All they said for unemployment is that unemployment will decrease slowly as measures stay in for longer periods of time. So this doesn't solve the issue at all. So this is one of the reasons why you should vote for the affirmative side of this debate. Now autonomy. Important ethical questions need to be addressed regarding the implications of restricting work on the basis of health status. Any public policy that distinguishes among citizens according to their COVID-19 status has the potential to threaten rights of equal access to paid employment, undermine freedom to socialize and to travel, violate expectations of privacy, and exacerbate enforcement practices that discriminate against vulnerable groups. The risks of reopening workplaces and the economy to individuals and communities are real. Steps in that direction should be taken cautiously. Antibody testing made available to those in the workforce will soon offer a scientifically valid way to better determine workplace access and mitigation strategies based on risks that individuals may transfer viruses or to acquire virus from coworkers. But the costs of delaying any reopening until we are certain that no one is returning to work will transmit COVID-19 are also real. There's no such thing as a 100% safe bet. Let's not permit unattainable ideal to be the enemy of a very good option that we currently have. Unemployment is higher than the AF says. May job figures miscounted. Labor Bureau used flawed polling and modeling. Washington Monthly 6.5. The Bureau, BLS surprised markets and most economists Friday with an announcement that the unemployment rate fell from 14.7% in April to 13.3% in May. But it's not that simple. The unexpected decline in the jobless rate is based on the survey of businesses and households conducted over the week of May 16th, and BLS has also reported that almost 30 million Americans received unemployment insurance benefits in the same week. That's a gap of 9 million people, enough to raise the May jobless rates from 5.7% to up to 19%. And this also goes against my opponent's card, because one of my opponent's cards says that unemployment is actually the rate is gonna decrease, but since there's flawed polling, it's actually increasing right now. For all these reasons, I urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Afset, Eric. So now let's welcome the second speaker from the next side. Ellen, are you ready?
I'd like to take a minute of prep, please.
1 minute of prep time?
Yes.
Okay, can you give me a countdown when you're leaving to the breakout room? Okay, she's in the breakout room. Okay, welcome back. So you'll give us a 6-minute speech. So let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm going to be timing it here as well.
Mhm.
Great. 3, 2, 1, go. Now, I would like to once again reiterate that as the negation, we only have to win on one stock issue in order to win the entire debate, and that our opponents, the affirmation, must defend every point that they make and refute every one of ours. So first of all, I would like to read some arguments that we have prepared. Yeah. So as an extension to our health dissat, I would like to say even small changes in policies can have huge health consequences, as young as Alan D. and Annan Fon et al. 522. Large-scale anti-contagion policies are slowing the COVID-19 pandemic. Policies have provided large health benefits. There would be roughly 465 times the observed number of confirmed cases in China, 17 times in Italy, and 14 times in the US by the end, if large-scale anti-contagion policies had not been deployed. Analysis of existing policies indicates that small delays in policy deployment produce dramatically different health and outcomes. In addition, workers will be forced to go back to work even if it's not completely safe. Bernstein 20. Workers are being forced to choose between their health and their income. The US Labor Department is providing flawed guidance and scheming with employers to force people back to work under conditions that put them and their families at risk of catching the coronavirus. If a laid off worker is receiving unemployment insurance and she is offered a suitable job, she must take it or risk losing benefits. However, suitable must imply a higher bar during the pandemic. Business is anything but usual. No one should be forced to put themselves and their families at risk of illness and death to draw a paycheck. The agency has issued guidance that ignores health risks and encourages employers to report workers who refuse job offers so their unemployment payments can be taken away. Now on to our refutation of their autonomy argument. Deaths turn autonomy. More cases result in harsher restrictions. McNeil 511. Excess fatalities mean serious consequences for governors. Americans do not realize how lax this country's strictures are. In Chinese cities, only a tiny core of essential workers was allowed to leave home. Others had to stay indoors, unable to shop even for food or medicine. In Italy, residents were not allowed to go more than 200 yards from their homes. If deaths in the US surged, measures like these could be imposed. Lockdown measures had clear success in lowering death rates. Interventions have to be maintained for substantially longer than a few weeks. 12 weeks work much better than 4 to 6. Now, reopening hurts the economy. Reopening leads to twice the economic losses, hurting essential industries. So you should prefer the Fed. Rabitsky 20. Sending people back to work would likely result in twice the economic downturn as an ongoing quarantine. Reopening businesses early would likely cause a spike in coronavirus infections among workers who are forced to take shifts. Random spread of the disease will inevitably hit sectors and industries that are essential for the economy to run. Labor shortfalls among core workers strip more value from the economy. It impairs production far more. Also, about the ethicality of what we are doing. Quarantine and travel restrictions are legal. Isolation and quarantine are police power functions derived from the right of the state to take action affecting individuals for the benefit of society, according to the CDC 224. The federal government derives its authority for isolation and quarantine from the Commerce Clause of the US Constitution. Under Section 361 of the Public Health Service, 42 US Code 264, is authorized to take measures to prevent the entry and spread of diseases from foreign countries into the US and between states. Now, what this means is that the government has the ability to quarantine and issue travel restrictions. So there is no ethical issue at hand, nor legal. Now, in terms of minorities, many minorities are essential workers and thus are impacted, many minorities are, and are thus impacted more greatly by more people being out and about and able to go to the businesses they work at. Now, staggered reopening was tried by states such as Arizona. It did not work. Arizona is experiencing a spike in its COVID cases after ending its lockdown, according to Lee et al. 628. Also, their statement that international travel is not going to be removed is not part of their plan text and thus should not be considered part of their original plan, as they are not able to make changes to their plan text this late in the debate. For those reasons, I strongly urge you to vote negative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so now let's move on to the second crossfire, which is going to be 3 minutes. So F team, Eric, are you ready?
Yeah, we're open for cross.
Next team, Ellen, are you ready?
Yep.
Do you want to discuss who wants to go first, or?
Af, would you like to go first?
Well, we went first last time, so I guess you can have the first question if you want.
All right then.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Your timer, 3 minutes, starting 3, 2, 1, now.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, like you stated that unemployment is currently going up, and therefore our statement that unemployment will go down in the long term under the current lockdown restrictions is refuted?
Yeah, because if you use like flawed data from a very short amount of time, then obviously you think you're going to see a decrease in unemployment.
However, the data that we used was based on data from previous pandemics and not from the current one.
But this pandemic is obviously unique. There are many things different about the US now.
As in these researchers used data from the 1918 flu pandemic in order to help predict how COVID might impact the economy. So you're saying that. So this was basically saying that after restrictions were lifted, after like being there for a longer, there was less unemployment in those areas than in places where restrictions were lifted earlier. So I still fail to see how that is impacted by the current unemployment rate.
Well, I feel like your model from the 1920s, well, it was well over a decade ago. So how is that relevant today to today's status quo?
Because it's the biggest pandemic that has hit the US in recent times, isn't it?
Yes, but it's still been over a century. Okay, can I ask a question now?
Yes.
What is the stock issue that you say you can win? Like you said you can win one stock issue and win the entire debate. So what is a stock issue?
So it's basically one, am I right in saying contention here? So like if you argue a point, then if we win on that point, then we win the debate.
How's that fair? Because can't we kick points? I mean, if we win on, okay, let's say we make 4 points. You win on 1, we win on 3, then you guys win the debate?
Essentially, as far as I'm aware.
How is that fair for the affirmative team?
Because the affirmative team gets to decide on the arguments that they make. don't they?
No, but we're the,
The negation has to respond to any, the affirmative's arguments.
okay, that's time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ellen. So next one, we'll move on to the pro summary, which is going to be 4 minutes. So yeah, Amy, are you ready or do you want to prep?
I think I'm ready.
You're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have 4 minutes.
Okay. My time begins. In essence, removing all major restrictions on commercial activity and travel, except for social distancing, sanitation, and critical safety measures, deals less damage to human lives and the economy than if continued to be implemented. The coronavirus is highly contagious, and up to 80% of patients are asymptomatic. So the original goal of the major restrictions was to flatten the curve, not to completely prevent the spread of the coronavirus. The best solution is still herd immunity, and the removal of such restrictions will not only allocate the recovery of the economy, but also give people the chance to develop immunity in a safer environment, thus resulting in less deaths, less poverty, and less infections. Quarantine lockdown for potentially 1 to 2 more years is unrealistic because the economy will plunge into recession, so people will lose their jobs, homes, insurance, and the resources to protect themselves from the virus. Then quarantine will no longer be an option because people no longer have homes to stay in. Poverty will drastically increase the numbers of infections and deaths compared to reopening businesses, but keeping health measures. 130,000 people die a year due to poverty in a normal year, and continuing quarantine would add millions of people to that list because those in poverty die at least 10 years younger. And with the added strain of the coronavirus, that number is expected to be even higher because they do not have the resources to protect themselves. Additionally, the stimulus loans given for unemployment cannot be sustained for years on end. The government does not have the funds for tax, and as a result, they can only print money, which causes drastic inflation or deflation. Oftentimes, these extremes contribute to a recession, where poverty resurfaces as an issue. Waiting for a vaccine or medication is unreasonable because it could take at least 12 months to a couple of years, and the economy will not survive until then. Additionally, according to the World Economic Forum, widespread vaccination usually takes 10 years and $500 million. Vaccine development is characterized by a high failure rate, often 93% between animal studies and registration of a product. In the USA Today report, Georgia showed a decline of more than $100 million in sales tax, fuel tax, and other tax revenue compared with the same period a year ago. Tennessee's tax revenue is down more than $120 million. Pennsylvania's is off by $760 million. And Texas, which has also been hammered by the downturn in oil prices, has seen tax collections plummet by nearly $1 billion. These are only 4 states. Quarantine not only brings people to the brink of poverty, but also the government in debt. 6 months of lockdown to prevent the spread of coronavirus could lead to 31 million additional cases of domestic violence globally, the United States has warned. In a paper using data from Johns Hopkins University, Avenir Health, Victoria University, the UNFPA predicted that if strict lockdowns continue for a year, there will be an additional 61 million cases of domestic abuse, which would have been expected to occur. The government needs to fund hospitals, medical resources, etc., and also provide stimulus checks for those impacted by the virus when they do not have the funds to do so. The NEG argued that the social distancing 6 feet apart and critical safety measures will not be enough. However, a Life Science article reports that 6 feet is the average distance that respiratory droplets from a sneeze or cough travel before they settle and are no longer likely to be inhaled by other people. The NEG also stated that even small policy changes causes a spike in cases. However, we brought up a card that reverting the major restrictions to slight restrictions will prevent many cases. The NEG does not have solvency for this issue. They just say that unemployment will slowly decrease. But what is the solution for those already unemployed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So next one, let's welcome the NEG team. Ellen? I think
Sally.
it's gonna be Sally. Yeah.
Could it
Sally,
please
are you
say
ready? Sure. How many times do you want to use?
so turn on your sound. Sorry, I was muted. I muted you guys for a second. What did you guys say?
How much time do you want to use?
A minute maybe.
Okay, sure. Please give me a countdown when you're leaving. Okay, they're in the breakout room.
Hey, should I go get them from their room?
Okay, we're done with that.
Okay, welcome back, Sally. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You'll have 4 minutes.
Wait, let me set my timer.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1. They still haven't really fully addressed the international travel issue. As my partner said earlier, they changed their plan text in the middle of the debate, which is not allowed in debate. You cannot just change what your plan is in the middle of the debate. And besides that, they still haven't addressed it, as he said. So, as they themselves said, 80% are asymptomatic. Who knows who has the coronavirus? The numbers right now are inaccurate and probably too low. And they say that they can't spread it because they're going to be wearing masks. But first of all, as I said earlier, some people may not wear masks and follow the guidelines. Second of all, they're going to be using the same public spaces because people are going to go to restaurants, they're going to go into grocery stores, they're going to be touching the similar things, the same places. That means that it's going to be spread through those areas. And in Crossfire, they said that, oh, well, yeah, they're sitting far apart. But they failed to realize that people are moving around inside of different cities and different states and spreading it to even more areas. And they may be spreading it to areas that are not as affected by the coronavirus, and then making it all much worse. They failed to recognize that. Again, 80% are asymptomatic, as I said in the first speech. This cannot be Next, they also said 130 people died from poverty, but compare that to the 127,000 people dying from the coronavirus, which is a bigger harm. 130 people, and maybe a little bit more because of the coronavirus, or 127,000 people and on the rise, and possibly even larger because of the 80% that are asymptomatic. You can't really compare these two. It's so obvious that there's so many more lives impacted by the coronavirus because of this. Next. We are actually not waiting for the vaccine because they say that it's going to take 12 to 24 months. We are just waiting for the numbers to decline. And if a second wave does hit, it's inevitable. Next. They bring up domestic violence as an issue, but first of all, it's already happening, so it's not really that unique. And second of all, there is evidence that shows that these people are actually outing their domestic violence offenders more often inside because of the coronavirus. This is the New York Times 315. During the first week of March, 383 people called a domestic violence hotline in the city. By the end of April, the weekly number had soared to 549. The Chicago Police Department said that domestic violence related calls increased 12% during a period from the start of the year through mid-April, compared with the same period in 2019. This is just showing that this is actually going to help if we stay in lockdown because more people are being outed as domestic violence offenders by staying in the lockdown. Next, interstate travel is actually really bad, as I stated earlier. Travel increases the COVID-19 spread. This is the CDC 628. Travel increases your chances of getting and spreading COVID-19. Going at a time when much of the United States is experiencing community spread of COVID-19 can pose a risk to you if you come in close contact with others or share public facilities like restaurants or picnic areas. When we reopen the economy and reopen people to allow people to go around except for protect social distancing measures, we aren't accounting to the fact that people are sharing the public places and people are going to spread it even further with these areas. They failed to counter this. Because of all these issues, I'm actually going to go a little longer. And yeah, again, their harms that they're stating are actually going in our favor because domestic violence offenders and the travel is actually spreading it quicker, and we aren't waiting that long. As long as people follow the guidelines, then we can make it so we can reopen the economy when it's better. And also, just to quickly re-mention this, the economy is actually going to be better if we stay in lockdown longer because our evidence shows so. Thank you. I strongly urge a negative vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. So next up, we will have the grand crossfire, which is going to be 3 minutes. So F team, Eric and Amy, are you ready?
Yeah, we're open for cross.
So neg team, Sally
I'm
and
ready.
Ella, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to discuss who goes first?
Do you guys want to ask for this time? Hello.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
3 minutes starts. 3, 2, 1, now.
Okay, so where would the government or these financial funds, where would they get the financial funds to support the workers who are impacted by COVID-19 without driving the country deeper into debt?
Actually, driving the country deeper into debt is not a big problem, and the country can handle that. So it's a very valid way of paying for people's unemployment benefits.
Where will the government get the money to continue quarantine?
You can increase the national debt. You can borrow money from other countries, other places.
Will countries really continue giving us money throughout the entire course of the quarantine? Because all other countries obviously need it themselves. So how do you expect other countries just to hand more money to the US and add to our national debt?
Are you saying that people won't loan to the US?
Well,
'Cause
they'll
they have
eventually
been doing it
stop,
for a long
right?
time.
Because they need the money for themselves as well. Their obligation is to protect their own citizens.
But isn't it true that the other countries are actually they're actually getting back into shape, and unlike the US is not in such a horrible situation with the COVID-19? And
Can you provide any evidence that other countries' economies are thriving?
I'm not saying they're thriving. I'm saying that the situation is much better than the US, and those countries have been providing loans to the US for a long time, and I don't think it's reasonable to assume that they just suddenly won't provide loans all of a sudden.
But do you have any evidence of how much money or how much how long the other countries will loan money
It's
to the
just
US?
common sense. The United States has just been borrowing money from other countries for a really long time.
Right now, are we getting money from other countries? Because we obviously need it.
I'd say that yes, we are. The national debt has been increasing for years now.
So that's not an issue.
Quarantine would add an extra $3.5 trillion onto the national debt.
And the US the US, it's literally impossible for the US to default on the debt because all debt is issued in USD, which the US government is the only entity that can print.
So isn't that going to cause inflation?
I actually have a card for that, but I don't know if I can actually read it right now.
I don't think you're allowed to read any new evidence in the last two speeches.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Do you have any questions for us?
Basically, if you want me to explain it, like basically, at the moment, it's not reasonable to argue that inflation is going to become a big problem. Is imminent because people aren't going out and buying things because they're all staying at home.
Aren't people in the current status quo already going out? That's time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're moving to the final stage of the debate, which is going to be the final focus. The final focus is going to be 3 minutes, and the F team, Eric, are you ready, or do you want to use your prep time?
We'll use the remaining prep. So
sure.
Joining a breakout room in 3, 2, 1, now.
All right, I'll go get them from their Zoom room.
Thank you, Eric.
Oh, sorry for the slight delay.
Welcome back.
Mhm.
F team, Eric, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a 3-minute timer up.
Sure. You'll have 3 minutes. You ready? Okay, you can do the countdown.
Yeah, is anyone not ready? Okay, time starts now. Also, first of all, they brought up an example over 1 century to refute our point. Use common sense. Is the nation's economy the same or even similar to 100 years ago? My partner proved that social distancing and other restrictions on mobility and business that we keep in place are enough to prevent a spike in cases, which is basically the negative impact. They say that asymptomatic people in grocery stores will touch different items and thus spread it. Stores in the current status quo are already open, so there's obviously still spread of disease. They say that they outweigh because there are more lives lost from COVID-19 than from poverty. First of all, that's only current data. Poverty gets even worse if we don't reopen the economy. And they read new evidence in their last summary speech, and they're really not allowed to do that. And their point on how domestic violence helps their case doesn't really make any sense whatsoever, because they're the ones advocating for continuation of quarantine. And families stuck together in isolation causes domestic violence in the first place. Finally, they ignored the inflation, in fact, because they said we can literally print USD and just hand it out to companies. People are using money now to buy things online and for food. So obviously inflation is an issue. People are spending money in the current status quo. Otherwise, what is the point of the Social Security counterplan? The point of the Social Security counterplan is to simply is to give money to the impoverished people so they have food to live. The NEG simply ignores these people and leaves them to die as poverty and unemployment both increase. In the world of the NEG, the number of cases will slowly climb because they literally said themselves that asymptomatic people will touch things in stores, like vital things such as grocery stores, which are still open. So cases will slowly spread and the US economy will eventually stack because of stimulus checks. And that's on top of the US spending $14 billion every single day. They say that this isn't an issue at all, but it will crash the US economy, which drastically affects the global economy because the US is obviously one of the basically superpowers of the international world. Inflation and several other factors will call this inevitable economic crash. In the world of the AF, the number of cases will only slightly increase without overwhelming without overwhelming hospitals. They will have enough space to treatment, and the economy will get back on its feet without any added debt, and people will get their jobs back due to this, which is people will get jobs back, which is a sustainable source of money rather than the government handing out stimulus checks to citizens. Don't let the NEG say they win if they won on 1 point. This is insanely unfair, and they can't just dictate the rules of this debate. They also say we have to refute every single thing they said, but each of our points is a different thing we can win on. So for all these reasons, please vote for the affirmative side of this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, FT Merrick. Now let's welcome the final focus from the NEG team. So Ellen, are you ready? Or do you want to use the prep time?
We would like to use our remaining prep time, please.
Okay, can you give me a countdown when you're leaving?
Okay, let me set my timer.
Sure.
Yeah, 2:28, okay. Oh, great. 3, 2, 1, go.
Eric, can you please go get them? Oh yeah, they're back. Okay. Hi, Ellen. You ready?
Isn't it 3 minutes? Yeah, 3 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Let's start. So again, a reiteration, the NEG only has to win on one stock issue. And so deaths over dollars. Deaths are the end all be all of everything. Death is permanent. A human life is irreplaceable. And what our opponents have been trying to say is that the economy, money, is worth more than human lives. We strongly negate that. Our opponents have stated that currently grocery stores are still open to people, so people are still going to be spreading at the same rate. Well, after opening up, people will have access to more public spaces, parks, for example, and office spaces, and these will lead to more coronavirus infections. Our opponents also stated that families staying together causes domestic violence. And that is actually a quote from them. I would certainly hope that that is not the case. I would certainly hope that families staying together is not the cause of domestic violence, because that would mean that people are horrible beings, every single one of them. And that is clearly not the case. Domestic violence is an issue, but anyways. Our opponents also stated that our counter plan is bad, but we never had a counter plan. They seem to misunderstand or not understand at all the idea of the absence of a plan, which is what we are doing as the negation. They also stated that we're printing money to give people, but that's not what we said. We said that if the US borrows money from others, the national debt isn't that big of an issue because the debt is issued in US dollars, which is not the same as just printing money to give to people. Also, stocks are on the rise, so the economy is doing, which is an indicator of the economy and shows that the economy is doing well. So we still win on economy, but we do also win on autonomy, which is an argument that our opponents made that they completely dropped. And again, death comes over all. And for that reason, you should vote neg on this resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen.
Good
Thank
debate.
you, everybody. Thank you. Good job. So, yeah, everybody, please remain in this room because we will cast the votings later live. Yes. So the judges, you may take the time to write your ballot. So Eric, do you want to explain the judging system we have?
Yeah, so judges, for now, please try not to confide in one another and submit your ballot either by email or just by messaging me in the Zoom chat. And after I receive all 3 ballots, I'll give the result of the debate. And then after that, we can have time for feedback and for the debaters to reflect on their process of debating. All right, but for now, while we're waiting, take a break. It's been a long round. Good job for all the debaters and all the participants for sitting through and listening and paying attention.
我还是想给这个 Nick 赛。
Thank you for judging.
Thank you all the.
Mr. Wei, I think you're okay.
For everyone in the audience, in the meantime, would y'all want to do an audience poll of who won the debate for fun, in addition to the judges' result that will actually count for the result?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, then I'll make a poll. 1 second.
I'm wondering, should we do it after you receive the ballots from the judges, or I don't know.
I mean, I'll just open the poll and
Okay.
then I'll close the poll after I receive all the ballots, so no one can see the results of it before the actual results are in.
Okay.
All right, for those of you in the audience, I think that the poll is open. We will be releasing these results after the official results from the judge come in. Also, can we please refrain from drawing on the screen?
Or should I just stop sharing?
All right. We can have records of who drew on the screen. So if it was you,
It
we
wasn't
will
me.
know.
No, not me. I didn't even see it until you said it.
But yes, just be warned that we can have records of all these things.
Yeah, please don't do that.
How much time left do we have to decide?
There's no specific time frame, but please do so
Okay.
as soon as possible. Yeah.
My ballot is in.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberry.
I have received your ballot.
Thank you, Eric.
So is my ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Wei.
I just sent my ballot also.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, let me take a look at these ballots and then we shall have a final result shortly. So we had a split panel, but in a 2-1 decision, the team from the negative won this round. Congratulations to both sides for making it to the grand finals of the prestigious National Youth COVID Debate.
Hey, woo!
Thank you guys so much.
Congratulations to both sides.
So,
Good job to both teams.
I thought the AF did really good. So good job, guys.
Congratulations to both teams.
Okay, and these are the results of the audience vote. So it was a very close debate by both counts.
Wow,
Wow, that was close.
very
If we
close.
add up the judges and the audience vote, it's a perfect tie with 40 on both sides. But now, judges, now is the time for you to give any feedback you have for both teams.
Okay. Well, as it is, I'll go first because I'm the one who sat for the affirmative. So I think that the negative doesn't extend enough offense properly in the final speech. Quite actually, you just don't put the offense on the flow. You don't re-explain the turns. And I think the AF is actually, I mean, they're not perfect arguments, but they're not really answered. Like, I mean, your evidence about the economy being worse later on is dependent on a study of previous pandemics, and he's said that the economy is different now. The AF could be a lot better at explaining what they mean by that, because there's a lot of good examples, right? Like people can work from home because of the internet is one big example, like that would affect that, and probably decrease in a lot of urban areas actually the amount of contacts people have, right? So the AF team could do a way better job of impacting that argument in order to take out your turn, but at the same time, you don't respond to it. So I kind of have to give them that little bit of defense against your main offense. And then you don't extend the autonomy turn in your summary speech. It wasn't extended. So even though it's there in the final speech, so again, if you extend something, you need to extend the evidence, and you need to say what card it is. And then you need to say, here's why it takes out their case. You know, for the autonomy thing, it's pretty obvious, but I only need like a couple extra sentences in order to justify that. So I was voting negative until the summary speech didn't really give me that explanation. And that's the kind of the issue. So that's why so I think that the AF has the most cohesive offense, the most cohesive advantage in the final speech. And yeah, I mean, let's see. I think that you guys should have talked more about the travel as well, like the travel stuff, because I don't think that they were handling it all that well, actually, leading into the final few speeches. I think that the AF did say like people will stay far apart when they're on, but that was in Crossfire, I think. Like that wasn't in part, that was an argument. So they need to extend that in the argument. So ultimately, the logic of my decision is that I vote on the AF impact that people are dying from poverty and that number will increase. Like their life expectancies will be lowered, et cetera. And those impacts are very concrete. I think the domestic violence issue is kind of a wash, but it probably flows AF the way it was debated in this debate, just because the things in the last couple of speeches didn't really respond, I don't think. Like they're not saying that like all families are gonna experience domestic violence. They're saying that like abusers being closer to the people they abuse makes domestic violence more likely, and it will increase it in that regard. So it exposes people to that violence, right? Which again, like I think they could have explained a little bit more, but as of the last couple of speeches, they do kind of. Yeah, I didn't really think your response was concrete enough.
Mhm.
So that's the gist of my decision, but I'll take any questions from the negative on that.
I think it makes sense, and yeah, we have some stuff to improve.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Mr. Greenberry on his first point. The entire debate, I was very slightly skewing to the neg because I thought you guys did refute some points that the affirmation made. I can talk about that a little bit later. But it was your last final focus speech that really got me. I was almost ready to just cast my ballot for the neg side, and then your final focus speech was it didn't really have any like logical purpose to it. I guess it didn't really seem to add on to your like Mr. Greenberry said, your offense. And I thought that the final focus could have been done a lot more. And some of the points that you mentioned in that speech, almost kind of like you dug a hole for yourself. But I voted for you still on the basis that because you gave the last speech and the affirmation could not capitalize on your last final focus speech, I voted for you guys for that reason. And then I thought both sides did really well on the research, definitely a lot better since the last time that I judged either of your teams. So I definitely saw a lot of improvement. So I really like that. Good job to all of you guys. And just some like small, tiny things. For your crossfire, I would highly suggest not focusing so much on like the irrelevant issues because you're here to debate on the economy and the COVID-19 crisis. So you're not here to decide what is more fair for the debate. You're not here to decide whose sources are more relevant or whatever. You're here to debate specifically about, this resolution you're at hand. So I would refrain from, talking about those superficial things in crossfire, and also to make sure that both sides get the time to ask questions and to not like hog all the time, I would say. And then in terms of those things, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and then this is also another thing just for like speaking purposes. I actually I was judging the neg side before this one too. No, I was judging the affirmation side. They were neg the round before, and I was telling them, take breaths in your speaking. Don't feel like you have to rush like 20 minutes of speech in 1 minute. Take breaths between sentences and pause and relax and enunciate your words clearly. Ultimately, you're trying to get your message across, especially to the judges, because we're judging based on your content, not on your delivery. But it helps your content if you deliver it well. So those are just a few things that I would advise you guys to work on. But overall, given that most of you guys do not have much debate experience, this was very well done and I was very impressed. So congratulations to both teams for making it this far.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful job, everyone. I just wanted to say that again too. Yeah, great job to the debaters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly I want to echo many of what the other two judges have said. But what ultimately gave me the reasons to vote for the next side, I think, are the two following points. One is on the economy argument. The next side brought up the issue or the contention that the stock market has done pretty well over the last 3 months. In fact, during the height of the lockdown and the quarantine efforts from pretty much every state or the majority of the states. So the next side kept saying, well, the quarantine and all these so-called negative effects on the economy is not nearly as bad as the F side painted. That is, even though a very arguable argument or contention, but the F side never attacked that. The fundamental issue here is the stock market performance does not equal to the state of affairs for the economy. The two are very different things. The two are a lot of times not in sync. So, and over the last couple of months, actually, that's very much the case. The two are completely out of sync, okay? So, but that was a contention from the next side, which the AF side never even attacked during the whole debate, which I was kind of surprised, because that would have been a very weakening or weak issue from next side's argument. So that was one thing, even though it was not a completely valid argument, but it was a contention from the next side that the AF side never even attacked. So that was one reason. And the second reason, obviously, was the freedom or autonomy issue, which were the two cornerstones of the AF side argument. One is on the economy, one is on the freedom of individuals. Well, again, I really gave it to you guys in between tournament rounds. You did additional research and was finally able to bring up that issue that many previous teams were able to cite as the Commerce Clause in our Constitution that gives the government the right to quarantine under a pandemic. In fact, even under much less severe situations, government is allowed to do that. So this is certainly a good argument to make. The public safety and well-being trumps the individual's freedom or autonomy claims. So for these two contention, I think the AF side could have done a much better job to sway my decision. But I mean, up until the end, I was kind of hoping, well, maybe it'll change my mind. But the AF side weren't really attacking at all, either doing their speeches or doing the crossfires or the grand crossfires to really attack these two fundamental issues. So for those two reasons, I still voted for the next side. I thought the debate towards the end could have been better argued, as Jerry has said. Some of you used that time, crossfiring time, to argue for the, kind of how many points you have to win the whole tournament. Again, I totally agree with him. You could have better spent the time from both sides, actually, arguing the case instead of arguing the rules. So, but anyway, that's my overall feeling. But again, as I said, both sides actually made really, really strong arguments compared to many of the previous rounds I judged. So I really commend you all for putting in the time and effort and even in between rounds to do additional research and to gain better understandings of many of these perhaps much larger issues than what you have to deal with in your actual lives and in your studies. So I hope it has been a great learning experience for everybody involved. Certainly has been for me. So again, congratulations to both teams.
Yeah, I just have one really quick thing to add on. Sorry. For the arguments, I've noticed that this entire debate revolved on very few arguments about, like autonomy, about mental health, about the safety of our workers, and things like that. It was all centered around one theme. And it could be because like the resolution itself is kind of, it's only what you can work with. But I would love to see maybe some arguments outside of the box, right? Thinking a little bit more than just what you're presented. I talked to the current AF team because I judged their debate last round, but maybe we can talk about the social impact of this quarantine, right? What has this done to people? Are people becoming more lazy? Are people becoming more, or quarantine maybe has allowed people to have quality time with their family, and this has helped them rejuvenate their spirits and working and all these types of things, and that could help with the rebuilding of our country after quarantine, right? And especially with all the protests going on, it's not just about things that are happening politically, but think about also how people have been so pressured at home, wanting to go out. They want to release their, spirits, their, fun personality, and how like this quarantine can affect them as people. Right now, the debate has largely focused on the macro scale about the country, about these big things, but also pay attention to the micro scale, right? Like individually. And for the affirmation side too, there are so many things that you can talk about as well. Like maybe use an anecdote in your speech about how maybe in your neighborhood, there are low-income people living in low-income housing, and they require this this day-to-day paycheck in order to feed their family, and what this means for them, that for some of these people, maybe the paycheck is worth their life risking for coronavirus, and how the majority of Americans, quite frankly, are people who don't necessarily have savings that can last them for many months, as well as businesses. So maybe focusing on a little bit more different aspects instead of the same arguments being presented in every debate, I think would really make the entire debate a lot more fascinating. But regardless, I can tell both teams did a lot of research and improved your arguments and evidence. So I just wanted to commend you guys both again on that. And I'm done. I talk too much.
Well said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of our 3 judges. Thanks, Mr. Greenberry. Thanks, Mr. Wei. And of course, thank you, Jerry. And thank you to our debaters, the F team, Eric and Amy. You did a great job. And thank you to the NEC team, Sally and Ellen. Congrats. Yay. Yay. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. This is the end of the debate. Yeah.
For some final announcements, I'm working on manually making a document with all the feedback and expect that to be sent out sometime in the following week. Tabroom wasn't being very cooperative, so I'm having to do this manually. Also, I would just like to point out something to all the spectators, that for these debaters, this is their 8th round within these 2 days. So just being able to power through is commendable in and of itself, regardless of the level of logical reasoning and argumentation that they displayed.
Yep. Also, yeah, if you are interested in debate, we actually have a speech and debate class that is going to start in July. Yeah, so if you're interested, please contact our staff to sign up for the speech and debate class. Thank you, everyone.
You know what? Before we adjourn, if you don't mind, why don't we give the audience to the 4 debaters, and I would love to hear what they have to say.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I know they've said a lot during the debate rounds, but if you guys don't mind, the 4 of you, maybe a few words about your experiences and what do you think?
F team and NEC team. Who do you want to go? Which team do you think of?
And maybe some feedback on like what ways the organization can improve on your experience, things like that.
I thought that you guys did a really good job hosting the event. I thought it's pretty structured, and yeah, thank you guys for hosting the event. And the feedback is really helpful too, because yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Sally. What about the F team? Eric and Amy?
I think overall it's a really fun experience to get to debate with so many people and like see their insights on everything.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think maybe they're just tired after this long day. Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything before we finish?
If there's any people who go to Northwood or are in middle school and are in the urban area, please consider joining Northwood's speech and debate team. We go to many amazing tournaments. It's really fun. You get to learn a lot about argumentation.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed it and learned a lot.
Bye.